I had a buddy that reached out to me and said, Lou, my car died while it was driving. The dash was going crazy. Wipers were going on or off. The dash said, drive to workshop without shifting gears. I tried to shut the car off and restart it to see if it would reset some things. And now I couldn't even go into gear. Had to have it towed back to the shop. So what can we do to figure this out?
All right, Hammer, follow me here. I'm driving my truck home yesterday, and I get 3 blocks from the shop, and it starts bucking and surging, and the brake lights and the tachometer starts bouncing around. The truck literally says, park vehicle, don't shift gears. And I pulled over and parked my truck right here, which I probably should have turned around and taken it back to the shop, but I got stuck right here yesterday on the way home. And I'm getting ready to plug this scanner in and read these codes. And you tell me what the hell you think happened. I got a Christmas tree lit up. Their lights are flashing. The tachometer's bouncing around. I can't get it out of park. It's not starting intermittently. It might be time to let it go. I'm going to plug a scanner in, man. Tell me what you think happened.
So what I'm going to do with this video is I'm going to show you how I walk through the process with him to not only diagnose the issue, find out the root cause, but then also go to the fix of it. I'm going to show you between talking head video like this. I'll show you between text messages and videos he sent me. And then I'll show you with online wiring diagram and how we go about ruling out systems and functions, and then getting to the actual failure, and then the root cause, and then the fix. So one very important question right off the bat you want to ask people or ask yourself is, how did this issue start? All right. Was there any recent work done? If there was, odds are, more times than not, that the issue is created by the recent work. It also depends on how close it happened to the work, all right? So I asked him, hey man, did you do any work to this car? Nope, no Lou, no work. And with it being a Mercedes and having issues like this, which tells me it's kind of communication related if things are working on their own, I asked him, hey, has the car been washed or rained on recently? He goes, bro, we just had it washed about 20 minutes ago. I said, okay, we're looking for water. Why did I say we're looking for water? I've been working on Mercedes-Benz for about 25 years, a lot of them online. When you work online and you don't have the car in front of you, you're forced to use other people for your findings and determinations. And then also you can step back and look at the overall picture of what's acting up and stuff, right? So more times than not, if your car is acting up after a rain or a car wash or it being wet, water got into something, and water is shorting or causing communication issues with all the control modules.
Lou, we got the vehicle over here and intermittently starting and not starting. You said look for water here. Tailgate I'm having to open manually. We got wiper blades working intermittently by themselves. Got all this shit going on. Oh man. And again, the wiper blades. Okay, you told me something about the windshield. Windshield doesn't have Mercedes. So you said look at the front fuse box over here somewhere, right? Something's wet. You've got the one in the back and one over here somewhere, right? And this does not have the factory windshield. Because there would be the Mercedes logo there or here. No logos.
So in those instances, the first two things we're going to do is, one, we're going to get a scanner and we're going to run codes to see what modules show up and what fault codes show up in what modules. And two, we're going to access the easiest points to find the CAN data bus connectors. I actually have some here with me that they look similar to this. All it is a row of plugs, and all they're basically doing is connecting to each other. It looks no different than like a modem or an internet point where you connect all the internet cables. They're able to talk to each other, right? So we're looking for something along these lines. They come in different shapes and forms, but they all do the same thing. They allow wires to touch each other and then communicate with each other. So it's usually easier to locate these and just check for water or wetness, especially after a car wash or rain. And one very important thing you want to know is your windshield OEM, meaning original equipment manufacturer? Does it have a Mercedes-Benz logo or a Dodge logo or a Nissan logo? All OEM windshields have the logo on it. And usually when they get replaced, people don't replace them with the factory ones because they're expensive. So you put a windshield in and it's not sealed right, water comes down those pillars, and most data connections are in the front kick panels, or water trails down and a lot of data connections are in the floor. So the first thing I wanted him to do was go after physical points that we have easy access to, right? You got to make a determination. Do I go and tear apart the car, or is it easier to run codes and try to get an overall view? So we did a two-parter. One was access the easy points and run the codes and see what you got. So I'll put it up on the screen now and narrate what process we were using along with the diagram and stuff, okay? All right, so the first thing I have people do is I have them scan the car, and then I have them send me videos or photos of the scan. So in this scan, if you look at the red letters, it's showing you there's a control module that reported back, and it reported back with a fault, so it's red. Now what I do is I have them scroll slowly and or again send me photos, because what I'm looking for is what modules actually show up on the scan, and again what codes are in those modules. It's kind of important. If you notice, there's a lot of not sending and data codes, right? But first off, I'm looking for what modules report back, and then what modules do not report back. So green and red are good because they're reporting back. Once you get to the white on this Snap-on scanner, notice it says not equipped. That doesn't mean that it's really not equipped. It just means that it did not report back to the scanner.
So not equipped on the ECM, that's not true. Not equipped.
So that's what we're looking for, is the faults with why are those showing not equipped when we know that they're in the car and installed. Not all of them, but most of them. So I'll explain how we find that out. All right, so step one, after you run the initial set of fault codes, I usually have you print a report and or take pictures of whatever's easier, write everything down, and then I'll have you clear the codes, and then we'll try to start the car or make the issue occur a second time. After a couple times of trying to start it or run it, we will rerun fault codes, meaning scan again for codes, and then we'll see what changes or what's the same. That way we know what we're chasing, because sometimes you're chasing fault codes that are old and don't matter anything. So he ran the codes again. A couple modules showed up, but you still have a bunch that are not equipped. So then when you try to go into that manually, meaning read the module, if it still doesn't read, now we know that the scan is accurate and it's either not installed or it's installed and it's not reading because there's an issue with the data bus system. All right. So that's the point that we're at now. Because of common failures of these SUVs, I wanted him to check the central gateway. It's mounted under the seat.
What am I looking for under here, Lou?
I'll add a photo of it.
I just don't know how any of this shit could have got wet, but am I looking for something up here under the carpet?
I just usually want to find the most common places where water are located, and in the floor in the SUVs is one of them. The other spot is in the battery tray, and then also in the rear by the fuse box and the rear SAM. So to me, again, not only do we run codes, but we're trying to just find common places where water occurs. So in the meantime, what I did was I made a list of all the modules that read on the left side, and then all the modules that don't read on the right side. Okay, now some that are obvious are you should have a trans module, you should have a shifter module, you should have a steering column module, right? So there's things that are standing out that we obviously have a failure with. So I'm going to then look at the wiring diagram from here and compare what modules are on what data bus systems, just basically meaning what are connected to what, so I know which area we have to focus on.
All right, so if you have the Star Diagnosis or Zentry scanner, they're the same thing, but they come with the Web ETM, also known as Star Finder, all right, the diagrams. If you don't have access to this, you could also use All Data or Mitchell or Identifix, but I'm going to walk through the process of how I found, what CAN blocks the information is on, or the modules are on. So go to the ETM, and then what I look for is I just look for a module that's not reading, right? So I'll start with the trans. Then I know which trans it is, so I'm going to pick the diagram for the trans. All right, here's a diagram. This is the transmission, okay? Trans control module. And what I'm looking for is the data lines, which are the CAN lines right here, all right? I notice they go to one connector, so I'm going to keep in mind there's a connector here, but I'm looking for the diagram that the CAN lines connect to, all right? So his year, I think we'll just say it's an 09 early one, so I'm going to pick that one. Now once I go here, this is the diagram for that CAN block, all right? So I'll show you how it looks. That's the CAN block right there in the passenger kick panel, all right? So on this CAN block, it shows all the CAN connectors that are there at the top, and then at the bottom, it shows all the modules connected. If you watch my video on how to read a Mercedes diagram, this is what's going to go hand in hand with this video, right? And there's option codes here. This one shows off-road package at the bottom left corner of the screen. You can see it highlighted, all right? And this package here for aromatic, which means that if you have aromatic, then you have this module attached. If you don't have it, then you don't have this attached, right? So what I'm looking for is all of the modules on this CAN data block, all right? For me, it's easy just to go to the legend, and I can see all of them that are on the data block, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare all of these control modules to my list of modules that are not reading, and if they match up, now I know I've got a problem either at this CAN block or with one of these control modules on the CAN block, all right? Now, don't be intimidated by this. Again, all this is that plug I showed you in the beginning of the video and wires connected to it. Imagine this is a power strip you plug into the wall of your house, and now you're plugging in different lamps into that power strip. Okay, that's the only way you got to think about this. They're just plugs that go to a module, right? Nothing fancy, just two wires, okay? So when you find a connector that has three wires, that means it comes from the gateway or a module that acts as a gateway, okay? And it has a ground attached to it, so the signal can be dispersed up somewhere. So here's the central gateway. That is the one I initially had them going after under the floorboard, all right? I've had a lot of issues where water gets in through the evap housing or sunroof drains or the windshield, and it runs to the floor and either floods where the central gateway is at or where the SAM is at. So let me find, so all these modules that are connected to there, you got the steering column module, the cluster, and the ignition switch, right? So what that means is all these are soldered together, and then they go to a connector, an intermediate connector over here, okay? And then they're connected to the CAN block. So I'm making note of all of this stuff because we got to find first the easiest location we find here, all right? They're all tied into here. Then after that, if we don't find nothing, now we're going to go after these individual connections that you see between the wires, if it's equipped, all right? So again, I compared what is on this CAN block versus the paper that I had written with all the modules that were reading and not reading, and then I started to go down the list to see what the consistency is and what's common between them. So at the moment, I told them we got to go after that CAN block, right? So not only are we checking for water in the common areas, but we're going to go after that CAN data block.
Yeah, there it is. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the R class. The R class, I think it's more towards the front, but it's right there. You're right there. It's right up against the wall on there. Yeah, so. All right, so once he got access under the seat, honestly, I didn't see any water at all at the beginning of his video, which told me that it's, you know, nothing's there. So it's good and bad. Good because, hey, we got no signs of water. Bad, if you want to think about it, is because, you know, I don't want to think of it as wasted time getting under the seat, but at least now we know, because water is so common in these cars that I'd rather have peace of mind knowing that there's no water down there, and then we can move on. So he's checking the modules that he found down there. I think that's the transfer case module. That one I'd have to double check the diagram, but this next module he's going to show, that is the central gateway. And what the central gateway is what it sounds like, the central gateway. It's the gateway between the OBD link and all the modules, and then it's also the gateway between the different CAN data buses because they operate at different speeds. So once we confirm there's no water down there, I was happy, and then we can move on from there.
Maybe some corrosion there, maybe. What do you think? Alright, it's nice and dry back here. I can get a little more intrusive with it when I check the other ones, but for right now, I don't see anything. I do hear this one back here clicking and whatnot when I'm trying to start it. So we'll go look under the seat now, but nothing obvious water back here.
All right, so the fuse box in the rear is just a fuse box. Under the subwoofer, it's laying flat is a SAM, an actual SAM control module. It's just a control module, no fuses in it or nothing. It's laying horizontal under the sub. I think in the MLs it's slid underneath that panel. So when the panel comes down, the SAM is sandwiched underneath there. You got to slide it out. But I think in the GL, sorry, I'm burping coffee. The GL, it's laying flat under the sub. So pull that sub out of there, which I think you got to take that side panel out to get the sub out. You might be able to undo the sub and squeeze it through the port, but you might not. But the SAM is laying flat down there with all the connections facing directly up. So the issue, if you don't see water in that battery tray, it's either in the rear SAM or it's in that front right kick panel. Pop that off and you'll see all the CAN connectors down there.
And it's nice and dry down here. I don't know how water would have got way over here. Carpet's dry under the seat, but again, I can get a little more intrusive and pull the seat and the battery and look, but I don't see any water back down in here anywhere. The carpet's dry. So I'll look at the kick panel on the passenger side. Alright, so over here, I don't see any telltale signs of water. Carpet's dry. Doesn't appear that it's been wet at all. Yeah. Oh, dry. Okay. I'm going to pull the subwoofer out. Okay, I got it away from the wall here, so I see the 3-wire right here is all the way at the end. So disconnect every single one of them, turn the key on, check for voltages. 2.5 should be uniform all the way across. Unless I see something weird on one, I'll contact you. If not, I'm going to plug them all back in. Plug this one back in for sure with the 3, and then start with this one and work my way down. Plug this in, scan, plug this one in, scan down the line. Lou, we went down this row right here, started picking up a bunch of control modules. We plugged this one in right here and lost communication with all of these, right?
Yes.
This one. And this is active service?
system.
This active service system is what woke up when we plugged this one in. When we plugged this in, we lost all of these. So I'm going to unplug this one again and rescan, and we should get all these back. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we got 2 more wires to go. This is the one that had the weird voltage that only had like 0.24 volts.
Never got codes.
Okay, so we're going to do these last 2. But definitely when we plug this one in, we lost all of these. After I test these 2, I'm going to unplug this one again and see if these come back. All right, so this wire right here with the 2 wires we plugged in on this one, we lost communication with this whole row. This is the 3 wire. Now we've unplugged this one again and we have communication back here. So we got 2 more wires to test. The one that did not have the voltage, and 1 more that did have the 5 volts across the 2 terminals. So we're going to check that right now. All right, and then we plug in this one. And I think you said it didn't matter, but we lost instrument cluster and yeah, you said that's maintenance. So yes, instrument cluster is Silas. That's this one. And now the only one we got left is the wire with the low voltage on it, with the 2 wires only had 0.24 volts across the 2 wires. What's next, man? All right, Lou, we're all plugged back in here, except for this one. And we're reading out right now.
All right, so what you just watched is the diagnosis of what is causing the CAN data bus to crash. CAN data bus is not a thing, it's a function, right? So here's a block that I showed you before, and all those wires just plug into here, all right? Essentially, all it's doing is allowing all those wires to touch each other, and that's how communication goes. Like internet, like the analogy I used of like a power strip with all the lamps plugged in, so all you're doing is sharing the power across them, right? And almost all CAN data blocks, there's 2 wires. Okay, there is 2 wires, but the voltage will equal 5. One wire is going to be high, one wire is going to be low, and that means if this wire is 3.75 volts, that means the other wire should be 1.25, so they should equal about 5, right? Older CANs, you may have just 1 wire transmitting, and the other one's like a backup, but in almost all the CAN data bus wires you're going to find, they're going to equal 5 volts together, right? So what he was doing was you unplug all of them, you plug in either the 3 wire or the one that you know will eventually lead back to the scanner, okay? All the cars aren't different, but there are different variations between models and years. So here's a data block that has a 3 wire. So I know that one's going to come from the control module that controls the communication between systems, as in the gateway. So like this would lead to a central gateway, or it would lead to a front SAM. There's only a couple different modules that 3 wires come from. An engine module is a gateway in some models. A front SAM is a gateway in almost all models. An EIS, the ignition switch, is a gateway in some models. And then in some models, there's a gateway, which all the wires lead to, right? So essentially a gateway would be a module that the interior CAN data bus connects to, the drivetrain CAN data bus connects to, the driver assistance packages attached to, and then it allows communication between the 2 because some transfer at different speed rates. We don't need to know all that. All you got to know is where they're at and how we're going to get communication back. So what we do is we leave the main guy in, we disconnect everything else, we plug in 1 wire at a time, and then we rerun a scan, and we see what module shows up now, right? And every time a new module showed up on his scan, he wrote it in the box. So now we know what those wires go to, because unfortunately, nobody labels the CAN wires. They're just all plugged in. You don't know what they are. The only way to find out what they are is to unplug it, run the scan, and see what stopped reading, okay? Or you unplug them all, run the scan, see what doesn't show up, plug one at a time, rerun the scan. So it's tedious. It took a lot of time, a lot of back and forth, okay?
All right, Lou, the second wire we plugged in, now I'm reading the engine control module. Got a bunch of codes in it. This is all bullshit stuff. And then normal, and then back to the not equipped. So, okay, we're in the engine control module now. Do I keep plugging in or what next?
But essentially that's what we did, is we were finding out what wires went to what module, okay? First we checked all the voltages. He found all the voltages matched except one wire, okay? One wire, I think he said, had none, and one had very low, okay? So those two are of importance, but we're going to see what they do. Once he started plugging in wires and rerunning the scan, the engine module showed up, the trans module showed up. You can see it in the video, right? Like in his list of things. Then he got to one that when he plugged it in, it crashed again. So now we know that is the guy that we have an issue with. Now we got to figure out what that guy goes to based on the options of the car and what else shows up as not equipped, right? So basically, one question I forgot to ask, which I usually ask, was any physical damage to the car, right? So now I got to add that to my list of always asking, was there any damage to the car? And he says, yeah, he had damage to the car. So let me show you the video as to what happened.
Andy, good morning. This tow truck driver is dropping off a car at my shop, and he managed to take his vehicle with that piece of his equipment right there and run into my truck right here. Right here. Call me, please.
All right, so after I watched that video, I says, oh my God, Chris, that's it. It's right there. Because in the wiring diagram, which I'll show after this, talking head, is the headlight control module is bolted to the bottom of the headlamp assembly, and his front glass is cracked.
All right, so back to the diagram. In the legend, it doesn't show anything other than headlamp range adjustment control unit. So when I click on here, it brings me down here, shows me the unit, right? So that module is located next to the battery, okay? But this build date, I think, matched this one. So when you click on that diagram, it brings you to the front SAM diagram. And I'm looking for the previous diagram page, which is here, right? My connector. I hope I'm not going too fast. You can pause and rewind, but I'm going to go back a diagram. Okay. Every diagram has the number at the bottom. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm going for this guy here. Now I'm going to go over to group 54. Once I jump to group 54, I'm going to find my previous diagram. See, it shows here 19 where I came from, and the CAN connector I was looking at. Here's the CAN wires, depending on the year, right? They go up, down. By up, I just mean on the diagram, not saying physically in the car. But I track them down, and boom, driver's side headlight module, or driver's side headlight. And then over here, E2, passenger side headlight. All right, so in here, our modules are labeled with an N. So when I look for this guy, right underneath the headlight module, or right underneath the headlamp. So with that crack in that glass, that's what happened, is water got into here, and because of a cracked headlight, it killed communication in the car and caused all sorts of issues.
So once you went through the car wash, the water entered through the headlight, got into the control module for the headlight, and it killed the CAN communication with the drivetrain data bus. Therefore, the car couldn't run and start. Can you believe that? A cracked headlight caused the car not to run and start. Okay, so I hope this video was helpful. It was the way of narrowing down CAN data bus issues. I will say the quickest way to tell if you have a CAN data bus issue is if random things are happening, right? Windows are moving, wipers are going on their own. Randomly things stop working, like a lot of different things. Okay, you can't shift the gear. It says drive to workshop without shifting gear. There's when you got a bunch of crazy things happening, then you know it's a CAN data bus issue. If you just have a simple issue in your car, then we're looking for wires, fuses, failures of that part. But don't be intimidated by CAN issues. It's process of elimination. The only struggle that you may have is if you have access to good enough scan tools or wiring diagrams, right? That's going to be the tricky part, is where can you get them? Google, a lot of people post things, right? If you have WIS, you can get wire diagrams in WIS. They're just not as easy to use as the actual diagram online, because you can click it and it brings you to the locations and stuff, right? So hey, hope this video helps. I wanted to post a real life case that I do. I do this online, at Just Answer. I also do this on my own. So if you reach out to me on my Instagram at MasterTechLou, I'll do what I can to help. But hey, hit the subscribe, hit the notifications. Take care. Thanks for watching.